This here is Boom Studios Go-Go Power Rangers comic issue number 26. It's 7 months after arrival day and we see Tommy and Rita dining at the Moon Palace. So this is when Tommy was under Rita's control, and Rita asks Tommy some questions to see how he answers. His answers are basically the same kind of answers a yes man would say to his boss. Whatever Rita asked, Tommy would answer with something he thought Rita would like to hear. But actually, this makes Rita angry. The reason is because she thinks that her spell on Tommy has simply made him a mindless slave. What she really wanted was a champion, someone who could think for themselves. For example, she wanted someone like Goldar. Granted, Goldar does fail a lot and is also a bit of a yes man himself, but at least he has a mind of his own. Now we return to the present and Tommy arrives on another world to seek out the new power source. Not long after Tommy arrives, he sees a white tiger. It doesn't attack him, it just stares at him. So Tommy tells Zordon and Alpha that he's going to follow it into the woods. It eventually takes him to a temple. This is actually quite funny in a way because we're only 2 pages into this quest and Tommy's found the power source already. We can see the White Ranger emblem. But then it turns out it's not so easy after all, because a voice calls out, and that voice is from Saba, who threatens to vaporize Tommy. Now, Tommy recognizes Saba because of the whole alternate timeline thing. However, Saba tells him he's not the Saba Tommy knew. This one is the Sword of the Light, not the Sword of Light from the power transfer. But will Saba act like the Sword of Light in this comic book universe? It's too early to tell. In typical Power Rangers fashion, Tommy needs to prove he's worthy of obtaining the new powers by defeating Saba. So Tommy knows what he has to do and takes on Saba. But he underestimates Saba's speed, who's able to land a few attacks on Tommy. During the battle, Saba asks why Tommy wants the power. Tommy tells him it's because Lord Zed is attacking and putting people in danger. Saba thinks Tommy's reasoning is rather weak. When pressed, Tommy says he wants to reclaim his purpose, to prove himself. Saba has knowledge of all that happened in the past, that an alternate Tommy became Lord Drakon, and Saba does not want Tommy to obtain a new power to become a new Drakon. At the command center, Trini and Zack raise their blade blasters on Jason and the emissary, as they thought they got rid of Zordon. I'm trying to picture Trini and Zack doing the same sort of thing on TV, and I can't see it. It's a cool moment though, raising a gun at their friend, albeit a laser gun. A fight is about to break out between Zack, Trini and the emissary, but Jason stops them before anything can happen. Jason goes on to tell Zack and Trini who the emissary is and why he's here. It's what the emissary wanted to avoid, as one wrong word could unravel the reality they're trying to protect. Billy contacts the Rangers and asks them if they can meet him at his lab. This means that Jason needs to cut short on briefing Zack and Trini about his secret mission, but he asks them to trust him. So the Rangers were supposed to head to Billy's lab, but we see Zed's sentinel monster, Nimrod, is now active. It doesn't see any Rangers around, so it begins blasting Angel Grove to force the Rangers to show up. And so, all 5 Rangers morph into action. At this point the artwork lets the morph sequence down a bit, as the artist drew Jason holding the morpher incorrectly. It's like the morpher doesn't have the handle on the back. That's just a small bit of detail though, it doesn't affect the story. So, with the Rangers morphed, they take on Nimrod in the park. Zack has his doubts about Jason leading the battle based on what he saw at the command center, but Trini says they don't really have a choice given the situation. Back to Tommy now, and there's no polite way of saying this, but Tommy simply isn't worthy of the White Ranger powers. He's unable to defeat Saba, so he's not allowed to take away the new power. That's actually quite nice to see, because Tommy is not godlike in this comic. He has his flaws, and here, he's simply not good enough. For now. All of a sudden, Lord Zed steps through a portal, which surprises Saba. He says that the planet was created to keep the forces of evil at bay. So how did Lord Zed find it? Well, Lord Zed blames Tommy. As a result of this allegation, Saba thinks that Tommy is evil after all, that he cannot be trusted. Zed continues to make it look like Tommy was in on it all along, and then engages Saba in battle. Zed thinks that he's got the advantage against a single flying sword, but Saba tells him he's not alone. Suddenly, the white tiger we saw earlier shows up and joins the battle. Saba gives Zed and Tommy a chance to leave before they get buried on that planet. Tommy tries to convince Saba that he's a good guy, but Zed tells him to save his breath as he tries to bring the battle to an end. He manages to blast the roof right off the temple. Zed tells Tommy that he drained his powers, but left him alive because he knew Zordon would try to repower Tommy. So Zed just had to wait and then follow Tommy. Well, that's a good in-universe explanation as to why Lord Zed didn't simply kill Tommy on TV. Think about it. With Tommy out of power, it would have made sense for Zed to just kill Tommy. But it was a children's television program, so there was no way Lord Zed was going to murder a powerless Tommy. The rationale for keeping Tommy alive in this comic book then makes sense. Saba flies towards Zed, aiming to stab him, but Zed manages to catch Saba. And that gets Tommy fired up, as he tries to prevent Lord Zed from leaving with the white light. At this point, Lord Zed tells Tommy that he's not very bright. Tommy had it all wrong. Zed didn't follow Tommy to the planet to take the white light for himself. He wanted to give it to Tommy. The reason? It's because Zed saw Tommy's warrior side when he was with Rita, and he believes that Tommy enjoyed his time when he was evil. So Zed wants Tommy to embrace that side of him, and to be given a second chance at being an evil ranger again. The final shot is of Zed turning Saba black, presumably making him evil. Well, that's certainly an interesting twist. Zed wanted Tommy to return to the dark side. The problem with having Go-Go Power Rangers set in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comics past is that we know what's going to happen. In the main comic, Tommy is the White Ranger, and he's good. So clearly Tommy isn't going to turn evil. Some suspense is taken out of the story as a result. Just like we know how Zack and Trini will end up joining Jason and the Emissary and be given Omega Ranger powers. But still, it's interesting to read to see how and why things got to where they were in the main comic. Overall, this issue was alright, as it was mostly Tommy's quest on seeking out the new white light power. We got introduced to a different Saba, so it was interesting to see this version of him, compared to the ones we saw earlier in previous issues, and of course, the live action media.